Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. The night descended and darkness came surging forth in all directions. But when it came to the huge tree, there were divine lights shining in its surroundings. This was due to the root demon wishing to avoid the invasion of the darkness and making quite an effort to remain safe. It had snatched god statues from many other places to protect itself. The area which the roots could cover was vast, but the original body was only a lump of roots. During the day, they would be spread out in all directions, transforming into women to attract praise to its doorstep, but at night, they would all be retracted to hide in the area guarded by the god statue's divine light. The White Bat brothers, the dragon Qin, Xiong Xiu, and Xiong Qia were all near the roots, in the area covered by the light, so they were safe for the night. However, all of them were either poisoned or paralyzed by lost fragrance, so they were unable to move. They could only wait quietly for the morning to come. Ghostly wails came from the outside while huge shadows moved in the darkness. Devil language rang continuously as if whispered by the ears. Some of the god statues had suddenly revived and were saying words that the people of current times couldn't understand. Light burst forth in the darkness and it suddenly retreated, revealing a world with verdant hills and limpid water. The great ruins overlapped with the other world, and there were people there examining the darkness in great ruins with curiosity. At another moment, a deadly quiet world which was grey and hazy, without any signs of life, suddenly appeared in the surroundings. A night of bizarre encounters pushed the hearts of everyone into their mouths. When the sun finally rose in the sky, the dragon Qin lay on his back with his 4 legs raised up. He had suffered from Mu Xiu's poison, but he could still mutter, "Cult master haven't fed me today." Another day passed by, and evening came. Qin Mu rushed back from outside covered in dust. He refined a drug while walking. He had also gathered some fine jade, which he refined into an 8 trigrams 5 phases furnace which was much more complicated and intricate than the sealed furnace in Imperial College. Since he was a professional in crafting artifacts, crafting such a furnace wasn't difficult for him. When Qin Mu came to the bottom of the tree, he was still refining pills and medicines. A sealed furnace would prevent poisonous gas from leaking out. His methods were different from the past. Ever since he had competed with Little Poison King, he had improved a lot in the path of refining poison. This time, he used the basic method of refining simple poison pills. Just like how sword techniques had 14 basic sword forms, refining poison also had 1024 basic poison pills. By arranging them in different groups, a different kind of poison would be concocted. The dosage of each kind of poison pill was different, and with different ways of matching them, the poison achieved would also be different. Besides these, he also refined numerous basic supplement spirit pills to boost medicinal energy. They could raise the power of a poison by dozens of times. After he finished refining the basic poison and supplement pills, he took out a few seeds and over a dozen insect eggs. He planted the seeds under the tree and used Earth Eon creation technique and spirit creation technique to hasten the growth, growing them into spirit herbs. At the same time, he had the insect eggs hatch, and numerous little insects crawled out. Qin Mu fed them supplements and made them plump from all the feeding. He then placed them onto the spirit medicines to gnaw on them, making their toxicity increase. Despite his medicinal knowledge being close to reaching perfection, Apothecary had never purposely imparted poison techniques to Qin Mu. He had learned to fuse the poison path with his medical skill from Little Poison King Fu Yuanqing. Qin Mu let the venomous insects kill and swallow each other until only one insect king was left. He then concocted different poison pills with all kinds of high poisonous pills to feed to it. Before the sky turned dark, Mu Xiu made her way back. This woman was riding a white elephant and it walked over at a leisurely pace. Beside the white elephant were numerous flowers and herbs, as well as birds and animals. Qin Mu was stunned when he saw flowers, herbs, birds, animals, and even insects following the woman. All of them seemed to be inseparable. All things have spirits, and poisonous substances also have spirits. The method she used to gather herbs is much superior to mine, to actually make the poisonous herbs follow her by themselves. This was indeed a great foe with brilliant attainments in the poison path. Qin Mu could feel the pressure. Victory or defeat wasn't determined in the competition 2 days earlier, as both of them had suffered losses. However, this time it might be a real competition. Mu Yingxue came to the bottom of the tree, and the flowers, herbs, birds, animals, and insects followed right after. The hair of everyone who was lying under the tree stood up on end as they looked at Qin Mu and Mu Yingxue with eyes filled with fear. Poisonous substances were common to Qin Mu and Mu Yingxue, but to others, they were dangers that they wanted to avoid at any cost. Mu Yingxue immediately took care of her herbs and executed her own technique. The poisonous substances grew by themselves until their toxicity was perfected. At that moment, they would pluck off their most toxic part, offering it to her. This girl was very serious and did everything meticulously, grooming her poison with single-minded devotion. Her poison was slightly different from Middle-earth's poison. It mainly targeted the vital qi, which was the beginning of a person's qi. When there was not enough of it, the body would empty out and the blood would become weak, along with their spirit and appearance. If the vital qi was completely emptied out, the person would die. It was the same for people who cultivated. Her poison knowledge chased after the origin of life with the intention to poison it to death. Her plan was brilliant. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows, then focused on refining his poison with similar single-minded devotion. The two of them competed with each other and refined diligently throughout the night while the huge tree beside them shivered. The trunk swayed for an entire night, but it still couldn't manage to break free. Light finally broke through the sky, and Qin Mu finished his poison. Mu Yingxue also straightened her back, and in both of their hands was a small jug. The two people looked at each other. What poison has Big Sister refined? Qin Mu asked curiously. Mu Yingxue didn't open her jug, but smiled. Your poison is very toxic, but your mouth is as sweet as honey, warming my heart. My poison has no prescription since it's a new one that I created to target the blood of a god and devil. I haven't named it yet. My poison has the benefit of dissolving the blood of gods and devils, destroying the origin of the vital qi. After consuming it, the vital qi will be depleted in 3/4 of an hour, eliminating the spirit and scattering the vital qi, killing the host. Qin Mu's eyes lit up, and he said, Big Sister, since your poison doesn't have a name, let me help you name it. Let's call it Spirit Eliminating 3 Wonders Powder, how about it? Mu Yingxue was extremely delighted and looked at him happily while praising, Good little brother, I didn't expect you to be so erudite. If it was me, I wouldn't have thought of such a nice name. What kind of poison did you make? Qin Mu patted his jug and smiled. My poison is also different from usual. My master never taught me any prescriptions for poison and only taught me medicinal knowledge. I learned the skill of refining poison from my senior brother. One benefit of this poison is that it can reverse the yin and yang, messing up the 5 phases. A great supplement is also a great poison. Once a great supplement is used to nourish a great poison, the corporeal body and primordial spirit will be spoiled. If my poison is consumed, the body will be the first to break, followed by the spirit. My poison has also fused the shaman poison of Roland's Golden Palace, which can disperse the soul, so it breaks 3 things. Why don't we call it 3-break powder then? Even though the name doesn't sound nice, it suits it well, said Mu Yingxue. Qin Mu smiled and said, Big Sister's name is interesting as well, let's call it 3-break powder. The people lying on the floor didn't know whether to laugh or cry. These two people were clearly foes in a life and death battle to poison each other and defeat the other's poison path. Yet there they were, flattering each other, calling each other Big Sister and Little Brother, and looking affectionate. Besides, hearing them praise their poison, it was as if they were talking about some sacred medicine that could make them gods after consuming it. Good sister, will you poison it first or shall I poison it first? Qin Mu asked. Mu Yingxue hesitated. Poisoning first and poisoning later had its own problems. Once the first person poisoned the root demon, even if the poison didn't kill the creature, it could still cause major damage to its vitality, allowing the next person to gain an advantage. However, being the first to poison would give the person the ability to seize a key moment. If the root demon was poisoned to death, that person would win and the other party could only admit defeat. Mu Yingxue was slightly troubled. Qin Mu caught her expression and opened his jug with a smile. How about I go first? He opened his jug and a wisp of black smoke floated out. A venomous insect came from within, rays of light coming from its body. The little thing looked like a spider, but it wasn't a spider. It had 8 claws, a long body, a stomach of a wasp, and 8 eyes that were all tightly shut. This wasn't a true venomous insect, but a vision transformed from the toxicity. It looked like a world-shaking poison would erupt from it the moment the venomous insect opened its eyes. Mu Yingxue took a glance and shuddered. She then immediately said, "Let me go first." Qin Mu moved back a step, and Mu Yingxue went forward to open her jar. A wisp of green smoke floated out, and the spirit-eliminating 3 wonders powder was revealed to be a green seed. Mu Yingxue executed her magic power, and the green seed flew into the huge tree with a whoosh before vanishing. The both of them could faintly see the seed sprouting in the tree and growing rapidly. Mu Yingxue cast her spell to catalyze all the toxicity in spirit-eliminating 3 wonders powder, and the ground suddenly trembled. The root demon seemed to have felt immense pain which made its trunk tremble endlessly. The roots that were as thick as dragons snapped and decomposed, causing miserable shrieks to come from the flower buds. The women flailed in all directions as the flowers withered. Numerous buds fell to the ground while the women inside them became charred bits. In the sky above, the first layer of the tree crown suddenly crumbled with a world-shaking rumble. It crashed down on a mountain nearby, splitting its peak. Great poison. Great drug. Qin Mu sighed in astonishment. Yet Mu Yingxue frowned slightly. Even though the first layer of the tree crown had crumbled and the tree bark looked like it was withering, there was something that was out of her expectations, and it was the green dragon bead. The root demon had swallowed the green dragon bead. This might have suppressed its mobility, but it also provided the root demon with incomparable vitality. The power contained in the blood of a god and a devil also surpassed her expectations. Her spirit-eliminating 3 wonders powder might not be able to poison this root demon to death. Mu Yingxue waited for 2 hours until the root demon gradually stopped struggling. Roots started to grow once more, and the tree crown also grew out. The withered bark fell off while new ones replaced it. "I've lost." Mu Yingxue's expression turned dim, and she shook her head. Qin Mu went forward and smiled. "I also might not be able to win." His vital qi burst forth, forming a sacrificial altar. He then placed the jug at the center and cast his spell. The insect on the altar became bigger and bigger. With a sudden whoosh, it flew up and clung to the tree before seeping into it. Qin Mu's hair fluttered as he moved around while casting his spell. His 3 break poison used shaman poison, so he had to cast the spell to move it. The root demon did not react for a time. Then, the toxicity erupted, and the huge tree rumbled. Snapping sounds rang out continuously, and countless wooden shards fell from the sky, resulting in a rain of wood. The ground became akin to a boiling pot as countless roots jumped out of the ground like huge snakes, wriggling in the air. Boom! The roots that had flown out from the soil formed a huge black ball while withering and breaking into pieces. The black wood that scattered all over the ground piled up to form a huge mountain. Mu Yingxue stood with a dazed expression. A huge piece of wood came flying down, crashing down toward her. However, she forgot to dodge, so Qin Mu pounced over and dragged her away. Just as they left, that piece of huge wood landed, and the airwave threw the 2 of them away. Soon after, they came to a halt, and Qin Mu placed the woman down. When he turned his head back to have a look at where she had stood earlier, he saw a huge pit where the huge piece of wood had crashed. The soil and rocks had flown in all directions. Mu Yingxue had yet to recover from her shock when she suddenly came to her senses. She took out a couple jade bottles and said in a hurry, "There's poison on my body, so you might have gotten poisoned when you carried me." "No need." Qin Mu quickly matched a few antidotes to detox himself. The 2 of them looked around, unable to help the slight numbness that entered their hearts. The valleys in the surroundings had all piled up with black wood, which accumulated into mountains. Under their feet were the roots of the root demon. They were countless as they lay twisted and motionless. Qin Mu then immediately looked toward the dragon Qilin and the rest. When the unimaginably huge tree collapsed, they who were at the roots were lucky to not end up injured or buried. "You've won." Mu Yingshue's expression turned dim as she said dejectedly, "The number one poisoner of West Earth still cannot compare to a little brother from Great Ruins. I'm ashamed to be the number one in West Earth." Qin Mu shook his head and said, "You don't have to be sad since I've picked up a bargain this time. There's Roland's Golden Palace's shaman poison in my poison, and in addition, you had poisoned the root demon beforehand and injured its vitality. Only then was I able to poison it to death. It had swallowed the green dragon bead and could restore its vitality at any time, so I was not of any help," Mu Yingxue said in a bleak voice. "Actually, I'm not that proficient in poison and am more skilled in curing illnesses and saving people. Furthermore, I'm not just anybody, my reputation is quite loud," Qin Mu explained in consolation. Mu Yingxue suffered another blow from this. He wasn't proficient yet he had still defeated her? "You might as well not console me," she said coldly. "Now that you have won, how are you going to deal with me?" Qin Mu was bewildered and shook his head. "Why do I have to deal with you? I'm very happy that the two of us got to compete and in the process got rid of this strong foe that is the root demon. We are both from the same path, so exchanging pointers is something we should do." Mu Yingxue stared at him with her shiny black eyes, then suddenly tiptoed to kiss him on the lips. She then stuffed a small bag in his hands and turned to leave while chuckling. "I've poisoned you now with the poison of yearning. If you go to West Earth, don't forget to find me, but don't walk through the front door. You need to flip in through the window." Qin Mu stared blankly, feeling that the lips of the girl had been wet, soft, and fragrant. His head was slightly blank. However, this wasn't due to poison. As a young divine physician from Eternal Peace Empire, Qin Mu knew his body like the back of his hand, so he was calmly analyzing his condition. "These are the symptoms of lack of blood to the brain. When I got kissed by her, my heart stopped for a beat, causing the brain to have no blood flow, so my mind is all blank." Mu Yingxue went straight for the dragon Qilin, Xiu, and the rest, so the surprised Qin Mu hurriedly gave chase. The green dragon bead had popped out from the root demon's body when it crumbled and landed in the middle of everyone. Xiu, this Naikue of True Heaven Palace, was struggling with all her might to move her body toward it. The two white bats were also crawling over. The poison in their bodies that had been planted by Mu Yingxue had gradually faded away, so they could move once again. On the other side, the effects of lost fragrance on Yu Buchuan and the rest were also fading away. Thus, they were also crawling toward the green dragon bead, trying to grab it before the other side could do it. The dragon Qilin crawled the fastest. This behemoth with an obese body was very lazy and would only move when fire was burning his buttocks, but at this moment, he looked like he had to get this green dragon bead no matter what. He forced himself forward with great effort, surpassing the rest. However, his endurance was lousy, and he began panting for breath after crawling for a short while. His speed then gradually slowed down. The two groups of people were getting closer and closer to the green dragon bead. An expert on celestial being realm was the closest to it, so he stretched his hand out, trying to grab it. The dragon Qilin saw the situation and immediately opened his mouth to stretch out his tongue. His tongue grew longer and longer, getting closer to the green dragon bead. From the looks of it, he was going to sweep it up. When Mu Yingxue came to this place, Qin Mu was a step late. Yet he waved his hand and his vital qi flew out, sweeping the green dragon bead up. Mu Yingxue didn't make a move to snatch it, but instead swept her sleeves to collect Yu Buchuan and the rest, sending them to the back of the white elephant. The woman in black stamped her feet, and her body floated upward to stand on the nose of the huge white elephant that was raised up. She waved at Qin Mu. "The master of Yu family is my benefactor, so I'm bringing them as well. The young man that I yearn most for, come to West Earth as soon as possible." Qin Mu was in a daze. He waved back at her with a weird emotion in his heart. The small bag that Mu Yingxue stuffed into his hand wasn't big, similar to a scented bag. However, it was black. On the side of it, a pair of mandarin ducks swimming beside a lotus with their necks together were embroidered in a gold thread. Qin Mu opened the scented bag to find a handful of bright red beans. They were like ripe apples, but way smaller. The red bean grows in southern lands, their slender tendrils twining together in spring. Xiong Xiu stumbled to her feet and looked at the red beans in his hand while chanting softly, "Gather for me some more, I pray, of fond yearning is this the sign. Cult Master Qin, poisoner, is inviting you for a visiting marriage." Qin Mu sniffed the red beans and shook his head. "There is poison in the red beans, so she is probably trying to poison me. Could it really be yearning poison? That's right, she kissed me on the lips. Hers was a little wet, so there has to have been some kind of medicine there that once fused with the red beans becomes deadly. Yes, that must be the case." Xiong Xiu was flabbergasted. This previous palace master of True Heaven Palace stared at the cult master of Heavenly Saint Cult with shiny black eyes, a heart full of doubt. Isn't red beans used to express yearning and love? How did this great cult master Qin link it to poison? Even suspecting Mu Yingxue of trying to poison him. She finally realized that this great cult master Qin had some misunderstandings in regards to the feelings between men and women. Furthermore, they were quite severe. He seems to have been taught wrongly by someone. Xiong Xiu thought to herself. However, Qin Mu still put the poisonous red beans back into the black silk-scented bag and put it away with care, making Xiong Xiu feel that he wasn't beyond redemption. Qin Mu raised the green dragon bead up and examined it. He saw that the color of the green dragon's body was that of jade, having a sparkling and translucent feeling to it. The whiskers were also green in color as if it was a jade dragon. The soul happily swam around in the bead. This was the dragon soul of a true dragon, not a mixed breed like the hen dragon, dragon Qilin, or the green bull. Instead, it was a pure-blooded green dragon whose abnormally powerful divine energy Qin Mu could feel even from within the bead. Even though the root demon had absorbed part of the energy in the green dragon bead, this item seemed to be able to continuously absorb the vital qi lingering in nature, replenishing itself. It was very strange. Truly a great treasure. Could the dragon soul inside belong to a dragon god? Qin Mu circulated his overlord body 3 elixir technique, and his vital qi automatically transformed into green dragon vital qi. He then tried to mobilize the energy in the green dragon bead, but he soon realized that he couldn't do it. This puzzled him, and he said, "I guess only by using the unique technique of True Heaven Palace could I be able to control the energy of the green dragon bead. My green dragon vital qi is probably just food for the green dragon soul." To use the power of the green dragon bead, he would need to communicate with the green dragon soul inside. To do it, the technique of all things having spirit and soul might be the only way. The sacred ground of West Earth is pretty remarkable, he exclaimed to himself. The poison in the dragon Qilin's body had decreased quite a bit, and he could finally stand up. He then immediately swung his long tail to and fro, raising dust behind him as he shouted, "Cult Master, give me the bead." Qin Mu didn't pay attention to him and threw the green dragon bead to Xiong Chia, that little girl, with a smile. "For you to play." Xiong Chia caught the green dragon bead and smiled sweetly. "Thank you, big brother." The dragon Qilin's saliva flowed down continuously, and he wagged his tail at Xiong Chia. "Big sister, let me play with the bead." "Don't worry, I won't eat it, I promise you." Qin Mu immediately fetched a couple jade bottles to collect the dragon saliva and thought to himself, "I should collect a few more bottles to sell in the capital city so I would have money. Right, I'll have to return to the village first to fetch Linga back. She's much better at managing finances than me." He collected over a dozen bottles until Xiong Chia placed the green dragon bead into her undergarment. Only then did the dragon Qilin stop drooling. Qin Mu threw a glance at the little girl. Even though Xiong Chia was still small, she was very intelligent. She took out the green dragon bead again, and the dragon Qilin's tail began to swing again, his saliva flowing down like a waterfall once more. After collecting over 20 bottles of dragon saliva, Qin Mu was finally satisfied. He was afraid that the quality would be affected if too much flowed out, so he signaled for Xiong Chia to put away the green dragon bead. The two white bats and Xiong Xiu had also recovered their strength, so Qin Mu brought them to head east. Xiong Xiu had been too deeply poisoned. If it was something simple, the toxicity would be mild and curing her would be very easy. However, the coiling poison had penetrated deep into her divine treasures, so it was difficult to remove it. To others, this could be considered beyond cure, but Qin Mu felt that she was still savable. He searched for spirit herbs throughout the journey to refine spirit pills, and after using 10 kinds of spirit pills and changing the prescription 10 times, he finally got rid of the coiling poison in her spirit embryo, 5 elements, 6 directions, and 7 stars divine treasure. After walking for over 10 days, they didn't encounter Yu Bochuan or any of his people. It was probably because the green dragon bead had been snatched away, so they felt that they weren't a match for Qin Mu and the rest anymore. Because of that, they should have gone back to West Earth for reinforcement. Suddenly, the sound of bubbling water came from the front, and Qin Mu's eyes lit up as he smiled. We have reached the source of surging river. Not long later, they saw steam coming from above a cliff while below it was a several thousand feet deep drop. Xiong Xiu and the rest immediately looked around and saw great ruins stretching from the west to the east from where the land had suddenly broken off, forming a natural moat spanning thousands of miles from north to south. The natural moat had split Great Ruins into two, and the West Great Ruins was thousands of feet higher than East Great Ruins. What kind of power could have formed these sections? Xiong Xiu muttered. A huge earthquake. There was no expression in Qin Mu's face as he spoke. An unimaginable earthquake. Xiong Xiu couldn't help shuddering. Qin Mu jumped down from the cliff, and his feet landed on air, walking down step by step. Xiong Xiu brought her daughter to catch up, and when they reached the middle of the cliff, they saw that the first stream merged with other streams that came pouring down from the sky, forming a huge waterfall. As they went farther down, they saw that the crashing of water had formed a huge pool below. The river poured out from there, but it wasn't wide. Its beginning was only 10 yards wide, but as it continued forward, other rivers flowed into it, speeding up the current and widening the riverbed. Xiong Xiu turned back to take a look and saw that from the natural moat, which was the cliff behind them, there were countless waterfalls pouring down. The flowing water would then gather below to form a huge river. Surging river. They had reached Surging River. Qin Mu examined the surroundings. When village chief had brought him to search for Carefree Village, they had come near here, so that village where the messenger of death was guiding the souls shouldn't be too far from this place. It would be a 5 to 6 days journey at most, and then they could return back to disabled elderly village. It was close to the end of the 8th month, so the sun was scorching. With it burning high up in the sky, the road was quite a bumpy one. When Qin Mu had come out with Crown Prince Ling Yushu, it had been the season of spring and now it was already the end of summer. Another season later, he would have to go back to the village for New Year again. All the encounters he'd had on his journey could be considered legends. As they headed down the river, water vapor suddenly blew over on the surface of the river. Pure white fog then sealed it off, preventing them from seeing anything in their surroundings. Qin Mu immediately halted, and the rest also stopped in their footsteps, standing on the river surface motionlessly. Xiong Xiu's heart tightened, and she asked in a low voice, "Monster?" Qin Mu shook his head. "Doesn't look like it. It should be a kind of peculiarity in Great Ruins." At that moment, Carefree's sword, which was in the wooden sheath behind him, began trembling, and Qin Mu's heart moved slightly. Carefree's sword rarely gave out sword hums. The last time it did so was when he met his father Qin Hanjun on the treasured ship. Carefree's sword trembled continuously, and the clamor of troops could gradually be heard from the fog. There seemed to be countless of people passing by here. "Look under our feet, the water is gone," Xiong Chia exclaimed. Qin Mu immediately lowered his head and saw that Surging River had vanished from under their feet. Replacing the river was a dry and parched yellow land. The fog gradually became fainter and fainter, so they could see moving figures around them. Qin Mu, Xiong Xiu, and the rest couldn't help being stunned. Their bodies froze when they saw a barren desert surrounding them, the yellow sand filling the horizon. Tens of thousands of divine arts practitioners wearing olden-style clothing were leading huge beasts to construct large buildings. These buildings didn't look like houses for humans to stay. They were tall, with pagodas reaching the clouds and gold and jade palaces radiating glorious splendor. All of them looked like places in which giants or heavenly gods would reside. On the tall altars stood brilliant golden heavenly gods. All of them had human bodies, but their heads were varied. Some were bird-like, while others matched different beasts. They all wore golden armor, and their divine eyes were shining brightly. They were living gods, and it seemed like here would be eternal radiance where their bodies stood. Tens of thousands of divine arts practitioners were building palaces for gods under their supervision, making the scale of the construction grand and spectacular. However, wasn't Qin Mu and the rest walking above surging river? How could this place then be a desert? A few hornless dragons dragged a treasured carriage through the sky, and the group could hear a voice rumble through the sky. By the orders of High Emperor, Ministry of Works shall construct West Palace and open up irrigation works and transportation. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. High Emperor? The third move of sword picture that village chief imparted to me is Calamity of High Emperor. What relation does the High Emperor from Calamity of High Emperor have with the High Emperor from the orders mentioned just now? A god with a dragon's head standing on an altar bowed to receive the orders. His body then trembled as he transformed into an azure dragon, summoning clouds and rain, drawing water over to water the barren desert. At the same time, another god that held onto a bronze plow transformed into a giant, cutting into a mountain and digging a canal for the irrigation works. Another god then took out a treasured vase which floated in midair. It pointed downwards and vegetation instantly flooded out, turning the desert into a grassland with dense forests that grew frantically. There was also another god, who took out a huge cauldron. When it landed on the ground, a mountain range rose from the land, changing the terrain. In no time, the desert turned into a green mountainous region. Qin Mu and the rest stared blankly at this sight. The boundless abilities that the gods of High Emperor era used to change the heaven and earth, a blue sea into mulberry fields, did not seem to cost them much effort. This huge river should be surging river, right? Qin Mu was stunned. He saw that a god that was wielding a bronze plow was opening up a main river stream. It was very long and surging toward the east. The shape of this huge river was slightly similar to that of surging river, but the path wasn't exactly the same. At that moment, fog surged over once again and drowned out everything. While the group was distracted by this, they could feel the land tremble violently and heard huge rumbles that sounded like the sky crumbling and the earth rending. Within the fog was a sight of an apocalypse. The sky was swirling, and the earth was flipping over. Volcanoes, meteors, thick smoke, lightning flooded the once grand palaces, burying a civilization. The group heard a rumbling behind them, and when they turned back to look, a natural moat was gradually rising up, blocking off the land. The fog gradually dispersed, and the time and space gradually changed. The natural moat slowly regained clarity, and the waterfalls began to pour into surging river once more. The yellow sand under everyone's feet turned back into flowing water, flowing day and night toward the east. PSSH, PSSH. The two white bats that were hanging under the dragon Chilean's chin were stunned. Losing their firm grips, they fell into the water. They immediately flew out and hugged each other while shivering. Great ruins are too strange. Cult Master Qin, quickly send us back to Ghost Valley. Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fu brothers, you two are also part of the strange things in Great Ruins, and you still say that Great Ruins are strange? You brothers have scared God knows how many explorers in Ghost Valley. The two white bats looked at each other in dismay. We are also strange. Qin Mu was angry yet at the same time found it funny. These brothers didn't have the least bit of self-awareness. They had no idea how terrifying was the strangeness of Ghost Valley, which was filled with all kinds of strange life forms. Even celestial beings couldn't say that they would definitely manage to pass through that place unscathed. On top of that, the brothers were the guardians of Ghost Valley, and so the strangest of all things there. The fog in the surroundings didn't disperse completely. When looking at the natural moat, everything was hazy. Suddenly, clouds of the fog floated over, and when they came close, they showed up to be grey figures that passed right through them. Everyone hurriedly turned around and saw the fog gathering together again. A voice came from it. What happened in the High Emperor era? Why did this magnificent time pass? Was what happened just now an echo of history? A record of what has happened, replaying a scene from times past due to coincidence and fate? This land is truly wonderful, and the people of the ancient empire are also admirable. Your Majesty, Tao Sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery have some records that were passed down throughout the years. Your Majesty just has to give an order to send them over. Excellent, have them send them over. I don't want to bother with these monks and Taoists that keep interfering with my reforms. Without a reform, how can we change the lives of the people? I don't want to see them. The fog walked toward the natural moat, saying, I don't want our founding emperor era to end up in the same predicament. We have to learn from the lesson of our predecessors. How could such a magnificent empire, with gods ruling the mortal world and working for the people, ended up in ruins? Such a powerful and rich era. With excitement, Qin Mu looked toward the fog. Founding emperor? On the family register of Qin family, the one in the first position was founding emperor. He was the ancestor of the Qin family. Qin Mu immediately chased after that human-shaped fog, but its speed was really fast, leaving him behind in just a matter of a few steps. Qin Mu executed heaven-pilfering divine legs and ran as fast as lightning, but the fog had still suddenly disappeared. He stopped in a daze. Founding emperor. Founding emperor empire. The empire before Great Ruins should have suffered a calamity, but how was founding emperor empire related to Carefree Village? Xiong Xiu and the rest caught up. The woman looked around before asking, Cult Master Qin, that site earlier. An echo of history. He then composed himself and said, there are many weird things at the source of Surging River. This place is connected to numerous worlds, so when night falls, many weird things happen around here. Yet never did I expect weird things to happen during the day as well. From the echo of history earlier, this place should be where one of High Emperor's temporary imperial residents rested. We may find some ruins from that era here. An echo of history? Xiong Xiu and the rest were stunned. How could things that had happened show themselves again? Yet Qin Mu had seen an echo of history before. On the treasured ship, he had seen the scene of when his father Qin Hanjin had been ambushed. This kind of echo of history was usually the mark left behind in time by strong practitioners. Echoes of history were usually activated by a person, object, or incident that was related to the original and had a strong sense of coincidence. The echo of history on the treasured ship that time was due to Qin Mu and Carefree Sword, so what could have caused the echo of history this time? It was two echoes of history this time. Qin Mu suddenly came to a realization that it could be said that they'd seen an echo of history within an echo of history. When founding emperor came to this place, he had activated the first echo of history and saw the incident when the gods under High Emperor had changed the desert in the ancient times. Then, the second echo of history was when founding emperor and the rest had appeared on Surging River. The first echo of history was part of the second echo of history which got recorded by time as well. Then what had activated this echo of history? Could it be Carefree Sword again? Behind Qin Mu, Carefree Sword had already quietened down and no longer let out any sword hums. The echo of history had also completely dispersed. There was no more fog on the river surface, and the sky was clear with the sunlight blazing intensely. The fog had come out from nowhere and left in the same manner. Too strange, why is strange stuff happening here? Wait a minute, the echo of history had also happened on Father's treasured ship. At that time, it was stuck between Yudu and the real world, with the beehive seals sealing the entrance. If the circumstances are the same, then the echo of history here must have also been because there's an entrance to another world somewhere around here. Qin Mu pondered about it. Maybe, the echo of history was reflected on the barrier between worlds and once it was activated, past events would be shown. He and village chief had met the messenger of death near here and entered the living realm of the dead of Fengju. The second time he came here, he had also met the messenger of death and entered the living realm of the dead to borrow Moon ship. The living realm of the dead was close, so Yudu should be close as well. The source of Surging River seems like an important node that connects the worlds. Maybe there's a divine out here that goes to other worlds? There are definitely nodes that connect things to other worlds. Qin Mu regained his composure, and layers of light swirled in his eyes, revealing cyan heaven's eyes. Looking around, he didn't discover any abnormalities. He raised his head to look upwards, and after a moment, he saw a trace of abnormality. The sky was the same blue, but he actually saw two clouds meeting each other and passing through one another. According to his knowledge, when two clouds met, they would converge. Yet even though these two clouds had passed through each other, it was as if they had never touched anything. This situation looked more like two clouds existing in different time and space so they couldn't meet and collide. This meant that there were two skies that were overlapping above their heads. No, it may be three. Qin Mu leaped up and sprinted high into the sky. Suddenly, a wind blew over and made him shiver. It may also be four overlapping skies or even five. This video will end here.